Leningrad, 1943. A city under siege. 900 days of bombardment, starvation, frozen pipes, and corpses stacked along the Nevsky Prospect like firewood. Inside a hospital near the front line, a psychologist named Avksentij Puni was working as a physiotherapist, keeping soldiers and civilians alive with whatever resources the blockade had left him. Before the war, Puni had spent 2 decades studying a single question: what separates the athlete who performs under pressure from the one who collapses? After the siege broke, Puni returned to the Lesgaft Institute and built the first formal department of sports psychology in the Soviet Union. The year was 1946. The concept he developed there would go on to produce more Olympic gold medals than any psychological framework in history. He called it Boevaya Gotovnost, readiness to fight. The first of his 5 decrees for readiness was not courage, not aggression, not belief in the motherland. It was something far less dramatic: sensible self-confidence, confidence based on evidence, not on feeling. 100 years later, the self-help industry has done exactly what Puni would have predicted. It has turned confidence into an emotion to be summoned, a mood to be manifested, a state you reach by telling yourself you are enough. Puni would have called that what it is: unsensible confidence. Confidence without a foundation. A cannon fired from a canoe. What follows is a 6-day protocol drawn from Soviet sports psychology, labor science, and collective pedagogy. It does not ask you to believe in yourself. It asks you to build a record that makes belief unnecessary. Day 1. The Evidence Inventory. Puni's first decree begins with a specific instruction. Before competition, the athlete must review the evidence of preparation, every lift completed, every interval run, every session logged. The confidence does not come from the review. The confidence comes from the fact that the evidence exists. Your desk is your competition floor. Your paper is your training log. For 50 minutes, you write a list. Every difficult thing you have done in the last 5 years that you did not think you could do, every conversation you were afraid to have that you had anyway, every deadline met, every move survived, every morning you got up when the reasonable thing would have been to stay down. This is not journaling. This is not gratitude practice. This is an inventory, the same kind a factory foreman in Sverdlovsk would have conducted in 1931 before certifying a production line as operational. You are not searching for feelings, you are searching for facts. The brain stores failure at a higher resolution than success. A single humiliation from 2019 occupies more mental shelf space than a year of competent work. The inventory corrects the ratio. It does not add confidence. It reveals confidence that was already earned and then misfiled. At the end of 15 minutes, count the items. Circle 3 that surprised you. These are the entries your nervous system forgot to log. They are the evidence Puni's athletes reviewed before walking onto the competition floor at the 1952 Helsinki Olympics, the Soviet Union's first appearance at the Games. They took 22 gold medals. Day 2, the micro-action sequence. Alexei Gastev, the poet and steelworker who founded the Central Institute of Labor in Moscow in 1920, had a phrase for the paralysis that stops people from acting. He called it a failure of sequence, not a failure of will, a failure of knowing what to do with your hands. When a lathe operator froze at his station, Gastev did not counsel the man. He asked 3 questions. What is the first movement? What is the second? Where does the hand go when it leaves the tool? The freezing stopped when the sequence was written down. Low confidence operates on the same mechanism. You are not afraid of the task. You are afraid of the gap between where you stand and where the task ends. Gastev's method eliminates the gap by eliminating the view. You do not look at the building. You look at the brick. Day 2 requires a single task you have been avoiding, not the largest one, the one that makes your stomach tighten when you think about it. Write it down, then break it into the smallest possible physical actions. Not plan the project, but open the document. Not have the conversation, but write the first sentence of the text. Not fix the problem, but identify one piece of it that can be named. Set a timer for 13 minutes. Execute the first action, then the next. If you finish before the timer runs out, continue to the next action or sit in silence. Do not open a new task. Do not check results. The timer is a door. It closes behind you. What Gastev understood, and what modern psychology has since confirmed, is that confidence is a lagging indicator. It follows action the way heat follows friction. You do not generate confidence and then act. You act, and confidence arrives uninvited, carrying a receipt. Day 3. The Body Protocol. Soviet sports psychologists in the 1960s developed a technique called emotional volitional training. The architect of the system was Arkady Filatov, a psychotherapist at the Ukrainian Institute for Advanced Training of Physicians. His method was built on a single premise. The body is not downstream of the mind, the body is upstream. Filatov trained cyclists, wrestlers, and sprinters to evoke specific physical sensations on command. Heaviness in the limbs, warmth in the chest, a particular rhythm of breathing. The sensation came first, the mental state followed. Western psychology spent the next 40 years arriving at the same conclusion and calling it embodied cognition. Day 3 is a physical override. When confidence is low, the body contracts, the shoulders round. The voice drops to a smaller register. The eyes move to the floor. These are not symptoms of low confidence, they are causes. The posture instructs the nervous system, and the nervous system obeys. For 5 minutes in the morning, stand the way a person who is not afraid would stand. Feet shoulder-width apart. Shoulders open, not forced, just honest. Eyes level with the horizon. Breathe into the belly, not the chest. Hold this for 5 minutes. The body does not ask for your opinion. It simply recalibrates. Filatov's athletes did not believe they were confident. They placed their bodies in the architecture of confidence and waited for the signal to catch up. The signal always did. Day 4. The public commitment. Anton Makarenko was a Ukrainian schoolteacher who, in 1920, was given a task no reasonable person would have accepted. He was asked to educate a colony of orphaned and criminal children in the wreckage of the Russian Civil War. These were children who had lived on the streets, who had stolen, who had forgotten what it meant to be responsible for anything, including themselves. Makarenko's method was counterintuitive and, by the standards of every Western child psychology textbook of the era, dangerous. He gave them responsibility, real responsibility, not symbolic. Children ran the kitchens, managed the workshops, enforced the schedule, judged disputes among their peers. His governing principle was a sentence worth remembering: the maximum possible demands with the maximum possible respect. What happened at the Gorky colony was not a miracle, it was a mechanism. When a child was given a role, the child became the role. Identity followed assignment, not the other way around. The street child who was made responsible for the colony's grain supply did not feel competent. He became competent because the grain did not care about his feelings. Day 4 requires a public commitment. Tell one person what you will do tomorrow, not what you hope to do, not what you are thinking about, what you will do. Send the message, make the call, say the sentence out loud. The commitment does not have to be large, it has to be witnessed. Makarenko understood something the self-help industry has systematically ignored. Private goals are wishes, public commitments are contracts. The colony children did not build confidence by affirming their potential. They built it by completing tasks in front of people who were counting on them. Confidence in the Soviet model was never a solo project. Day 5, the comparison audit. At the Lesgaft Institute in Leningrad, Puni kept training logs for every athlete under his supervision. The logs did not compare one athlete to another. They compared each athlete to their own previous performance. Monday's lift against Friday's lift. This month's interval against last month's interval. The unit of measurement was personal progress, not rank. Day 5 is a 15-minute audit. Sit down with the evidence inventory from day 1 and add to it anything you have done in the past 4 days. Then write a second list. Every person you have been comparing yourself to in the last month. Every social media profile, every colleague's achievement, every sibling's milestone that has made you feel smaller than you are. Cross out the second list, not as an affirmation exercise, as an accuracy correction. You have been measuring your performance against someone else's training log. That is not assessment. That is distortion. Puni's athletes at the 1952 Olympics were not told they were better than the Americans. They were told they were better than they had been 6 months ago. That was the only comparison that produced useful data. Everything else was noise, and Puni was not interested in noise. If this protocol is reaching something in you, something that has been looking for a harder vocabulary than the one the wellness industry provides, there is a guide that extends these principles. It is called the Soviet Habits Handbook. Stop waiting for motivation. Start building the life you actually want. The link is in the comments. No upsell, no mailing list. Read it or leave it on the shelf. Day 6, Integration. Boevaya gotovnost. Readiness to fight. Pooney defined it as a state of total preparation, where physical conditioning, technical mastery, and psychological clarity converge into a single operating mode. His athletes did not arrive at this state through inspiration. They arrived at it through protocol. Day 6 is the convergence. You have an evidence inventory. You have a micro-action sequence. You have a physical override. You have a public commitment. You have an accuracy-corrected comparison baseline. These are not ideas. They are instruments and they are sitting on your desk. For 20 minutes, review the week. Write what you did, not what you felt. Write what you completed, not what you intended. Write one sentence about the gap between the fear you carried on day 1 and the record you hold on day 6. The gap, in almost every case, is larger than you expected. Recording this is not optimism, it is evidence. There is an observation worth sitting with, and it is not sentimental. The Soviet century produced, among its many consequences, a particular kind of training philosophy. A philosophy that did not ask whether the athlete felt ready. It asked whether the evidence said so. You do not need to admire the regime to notice the instrument. A method built in a hard country is still a method. The cost of this protocol, the one nobody will print on a motivational poster, is that it refuses to tell you that you are already enough. It says, like Makarenko standing in a cold schoolroom in 1920, that you are a person who has not yet been given a serious assignment. Once you are given one, you will discover that you were ready the entire time. You were simply never asked. Pooney survived 900 days of siege, rebuilt a department in a city that had buried 1/3 of its population, and produced Olympic champions with a system that never required a single word of encouragement. The system required evidence, repetition, and the quiet refusal to treat confidence as a feeling. Tomorrow begin at day 1.